Just a reminder, all lines are currently on mute to prevent any background noise. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the question area in your dashboard to be answered at the conclusion of the webinar. At this time, I'd like to turn the webinar over to CEO and speaker Jennifer Bagley. Jennifer, you may now begin your webinar.
Thank you so much, CJ. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you joining today. I know you guys are ramping up for summer, and taking a minute to work on your business instead of in your business is always beneficial. So as CJ mentioned, we're going to be talking a little bit about websites today, specifically about websites and how to maximize conversions, how to make decisions when it comes to it, and considerations that are going to be important as far as part of the process. So we're headed into a new year. It's time to spruce things up, and here's where to start. So first and foremost, when it comes to any business owners' initiatives, we always want to define the goals behind those initiatives. It doesn't matter what we're doing. Why are we doing it? What's most important? And once we understand the initiatives, then we can start making better and better decisions. First and foremost, traffic. Some of you are interested in generating more traffic to your website. And more traffic ultimately comes from having higher rankings in search engines like Google and Bing and Yahoo, primarily Google, in order to be able to convert more business, new business, and they're interested in keeping existing customers for long haul, having the opportunity to upsell and resell and generate referrals. So on one hand, new client acquisition is usually critical to most companies. Sometimes they don't want to grow. They're not looking for new clients. And in that environment, you're leveraging operational efficiencies. How do you buy back more minutes? How do you leverage the technology in order to gain more time? In any instance, every one of the goals of the business is going to help you define the requirements of the project. That being said, when it comes to traffic, a critical element is actually the development of the website. The development includes the code behind the scenes. It's like taking a dollhouse and turning it around. What's inside of it? You can see the outside, but you can't see what's inside it. It's like looking at the inside of an air conditioner or a heater. It's all of the complicated things behind the scenes that's not part of the visual appearance. Not all sites are created equal when it comes to development. So we'll go through some of those different options and discuss how to best make your decision based on your personal goals. Next is rank. How do you actually get ranked? Well, it starts with content. So is content alone going to put you on page 1 of Google? Absolutely not. But can you get to page 1 of Google without the content? That's difficult. So when it comes to achieving rankings, the predecessor or the foundation of the infrastructure is, do you have content for the services you want to sell in the cities you want to sell them, and for the search terms that your ideal candidates are using to find companies like you online? Content is typically the #1 most important and least budgeted for, and it is also one of the most time-consuming processes of the entire website project. It's not usually looked at as a separate component or element. It's not usually focused on, but if it's the most important. And the reason I say this is because all Google is a giant filing system, filing billions and billions, trillions of pages of content. It's not filing websites. It's filing individual pages of content based on the titles and the labels, and then it's ranking them based on all of the other external things that happens when you're marketing a website, not just building one. Next is conversions, being able to convert new prospects. When they first start off, they're suspects. They may not trust contractors. They may have had bad experiences. So we have to be able to design a website that makes them feel comfort, that makes them feel like they can trust you, that makes them quickly know who you are, where you are. Do you service their area? Do you have what they need? And do other people love you? So there's a lot involved in design. And sometimes design can't be done well because you're missing other things. You may be missing those testimonials and reviews, or you may be missing social media sites that show transparency. So there's other elements to being able to create a great design, and a design is not great without content, and development can't be done without design, and it needs content to showcase. So everything is connected and integrated. Next goal, I want to keep my customers. I want to improve operational efficiencies. I want to make the site more interactive. I want a reason for people to come back. I want them to bookmark my website. I don't want them to forget who I am. The process of making a website interactive is usually additional custom functionality or apps that's required to make the website connect with and have more of an interactive relationship with the prospect or customer. When you define your priorities, then you create the selection criteria, and based on that selection criteria, it's going to create a budget and a timeline. The reverse is you can create a budget and you can work backwards what fits in that budget that can get me as close to my priorities as possible. And all of these things depend, what are you coming to the table with? What are your current assets? What do you already have available? And then what do you need next? So next I'm going to go through the process. Behind this I have a graphic, which is a flow chart, and it is a legitimate flow chart. This is the process. The number of people and resources that it takes, the number of decision trees that will route you a different path or direction depending on your choice, depending on actions, lack of action, all of these different things, assets, no assets, access, no access, logins, no logins, ownership, no ownership. There are hundreds of different decision trees that take place when it comes to the proper process for building, designing, and launching a website. So the way I've always looked at things is that if I knew it was hard going into it, I'm going to smile through the process. So that being said, I'm going to go through the simple version of the website design process with you today so that you can prepare yourself for the things that are most critical in your world. Now, the map behind here is the real process. What I'm going to go through with you on the next slide, these are milestones, major milestones. They're not all the hundreds and hundreds of tasks and resources and people and decision trees and so forth that are behind the scenes. They're just the major milestones that you need to be most concerned with. Now, your impact on these milestones is pretty significant. So first and foremost, when it comes to the process, my recommendation is you got to commit to it. You got to commit to it. I will tell you there is no time that's a good time, but it's always the right time. So this has the most amount of information out of every slide we have because this is the primary steps. Now I have a handful of things that are labeled in red. If it's labeled in red, that is called a critical milestone. A critical milestone. Those will define the length of the project, the cost of the project, the timelines of the project, the resources of the project. Critical milestones are different. If one critical milestone fails on day one, and I'll give you an example. Let's say you sign on with a new agency and your payment fails. That's kind of a critical milestone. It's going to delay your start date. If the agency requires onboarding form, what they're going to have to. Onboarding forms are the transfer of your tribal knowledge, your technical knowledge, your logins and passwords, your access, your branding, your logos, your fonts, your styles, your colors, your links, all of these things. That's part of the process. So if this critical milestone, onboarding forms, is delayed, the end of the project, you can actually determine on day 5 that the project is going to be reshuffled and it's going to take longer. So that's what, if you have any experience in a formal project management, you have tasks and resources, resource leveling, you have milestones, and then you have critical milestones. Critical milestones are always going to be in red. All right, that being said, commit to the process. So first and foremost, up front, what you need to do is go through the evaluation process. In our world, we call it a digital evaluation. We always need to have a starting point. We need to know, what are you coming to the table with, as much as possible. When you decide that you're going to work with a company, you want to be as open up front. You want to provide as much access to as much information as possible. You want to disclose as much as possible so that they can actually understand what the project involves. I'll give you an example. A while back, we had a customer outside of this industry that did not disclose but knew they had black hat SEO, they had bad backlinks, they had a lot of big issues with their prior website. So through the discovery process, the evaluation, they didn't share access to things like analytics or reports or the warnings they got from Google. And then when you get down to deciding what are the resources that are available for that project based on budgets and the collaborative process, and you start allocating and planning out the schedule, the time. It's like sending your guys on a job. If you have a really big job and it's going to require a lot of resources, you want to know all the ins and outs of that job so that you can plan every person that's necessary for it and how long it's going to take and so forth. You don't want a guy that you've got planned to be there for a week out for a month or 2 months or longer. That doesn't work, okay? So in the evaluation process, you want to be as forthcoming as possible, even if it's going to possibly alter how long the project's going to take, because certain things are reality and they're as factual as gravity. If you jump off a building, you fall. And so in this environment, there are certain things that are just simply going to delay a project if you don't bring them up, or if you don't know about them, then that's something you need to be flexible with. If your agency finds things once they gain access and can see really behind the scenes to be able to see that. So next is, once you have the digital evaluation done, then you're really in the budgeting and strategy period. And this kind of works one of two ways. It depends on the size of the company. If you're a smaller company, it's probably a good idea to talk budget first. Strategy, everybody wants the world, and I understand that, but we can't always have that. We have to have a piece of the world. We have to buy a parcel, and then we have to continue to add to it over time. So sometimes companies have a relatively unlimited budget. They might have 100 trucks. They might be doing 10 million a year, 50 million a year, and they really want to concentrate on strategy. They've been through this process, so they're looking for, what do I need to invest in order to achieve a certain set of goals? So either way, just depends, but that's a piece of the process. Once you have those two things established, you understand the goals, you've done the evaluation, you understand the goals, you've talked through strategy, you've got a budget to work with, then you're looking at option selections. So there's 101 things you could put inside of a website, massive amounts of options and so forth, but every option requires somebody to do the work, just like your guys' work. So prioritizing those options and really fine-tuning it down to, what are the things I absolutely need to get the best results for my goals and the budget that I have allocated to the project. And you'll go through the agreement, payment, boom, that's a start date. Doesn't necessarily mean your project's going to start, because there's still a whole bunch of missing information that has to be transferred to the team who's responsible for representing you online. So the next stage is another critical milestone. In our world, we call it the onboarding process, where you submit all of that tribal knowledge and technical knowledge to your partners as much as you can, and you want to take ample amount of time to submit as much as you can, so that They understand you. They understand your business, how you're different. You have to think about things. What's your unique selling proposition? How are you different from everyone else? And really, you want to have those conversations as a team and a group and talk to the people in your company and really define, what is it that makes you stand out? It can't be great service. It tastes like chicken. Everybody says that. What is it that people are going to connect to that truly makes you different than everyone else? Also included in that is visual appearance. What do you guys have? What are your branding guidelines? Do you have a logo, colors, fonts, styles? If you don't have these things, you're going to need to add them to your options, which means you're going to have to go through the process of defining the branding guidelines, and that usually starts with the logo. That's your initial design concept, and you're going to need that going into the project. So go back to the drawing board, redo your plan, your strategy, include those things if you don't have them. And all of that should be identified way early on in the evaluation process. All right, next. And by the way, this is not a critical milestone because fonts and colors are easy to change, and you can design and develop a logo or a website without a logo if you have those relatively defined, and you can add that later. So this isn't a project stopper. It's not going to make or break. You can move on to the next step, which is your project launch meeting. During these, you want a very clear set of roles. And it's important to understand that just like in your business, one person doesn't know everything. You're going to have specialists that are going to be experts at different things. You're going to have designers and developers and content writers, and content editors are different than content writers. They're proofers. Right? You're going to have strategists and project managers who aren't technical experts, but they're project managers. So in any way, in any environment, it's important to identify clear roles, not only with your agency, but in addition in your business. Being able to step back and assign a role in your company who is given the time and approval and the direction to be the point person and adhere to the timelines and expectations and communications, and most importantly, all of the critical milestones that are agreed to by both companies. Next is communication systems. No matter what agency you're working with, they're going to have some kind of a communication system. And whatever it is, I know it's easier to just do you. If you want the project to be successful, buy into whatever communication system they have. If you don't, you're always going to be fighting an uphill battle. I've heard hundreds and hundreds of stories from companies that get flustered because they feel like things are getting dropped and so forth. There should be a central communication system. It's a project management system, it's a help desk, it's a channel, it's something. Whatever that is, you guys stick to it. When you're trying to build a website, when you start thinking and brainstorming, and I know how it goes, you glance at something, it gives you an idea, you don't like something, you want to see something else, and your brain starts trekking, and next thing you know, you're on Facebook opening up a chat and talking to one person you happen to know or be friends with in the company, or sending a text message to them, or leaving a voicemail. The problem with that is, or sending just an email to one person, my guess is whoever you know is probably not the one that needs to do the work. So skip that and use their communication system. Submit it through the system so the whole company has visibility of it, and they can assign it to the right person. They can assign it to the person who has the skill and the knowledge and the know-how to be able to get that done. And you never have to wonder or have a conversation about what you thought you submitted versus what you submitted or didn't submit, and you think you told somebody or you didn't. It's in one place. So commit to the system, use that communication system inside and out, and try not to vary from that. All right, next, another critical milestone. So we have homepage design. A designer, we're going to talk a little bit about a designer, but this is the very front page that everybody sees. This is your storefront online, and it's got to look good. This is the make or break you. This will immediately help you grow your business, or it will do nothing for you, or it will actually send a referral from your mother the other direction. So homepage design is very important. you never want to start with an agency and boom, they just start coding a website, making a website for you. You guys, you gotta commit to, what is my site visually going to look like when someone lands on that first page? And that is really important. So take your time, try and think through logically, try and think through in one shot, what are all the changes you want? You're usually going to have a certain number of changes. In our world, we allow 3 rounds of changes. But usually they're going to give you a set number of changes. And so you want to be thorough, and you want to be clear, and you want to give consistent, or I should say provide clarity in direction. In the web world, it's funny because I see people working with designers all the time and they'll say, just make it pop. Like, the web person doesn't know what pop means. Your version of pop and their version of pop might be totally different. So clarity, you want to, instead of saying, I don't like it, say, here's some things I like that I think would be a better fit for this area. And be specific. So the more specific you are, the happier you're going to be through the process, the less rounds of changes you're going to have, and the quicker you're going to hit this critical milestone, which is the approval. Remember, one of the longest 2 periods of an entire web project should be the development, which is when those coders get in there, and content, transfer and writing and editing and all of the things. So you don't want to get stuck in the design process for too long. You want to get to approval. So on one hand, you want to love it and you want to get to approval. You don't want to go through too many rounds of changes, because once you do, the picture is always going to look crooked every time you look at it when you start down that path. All right, so then next step, this happens somewhere in between here. You're going to have some kind of a technical team that's doing your server setup and software integration and your configuration, and they're going to be creating sitemaps and doing all of the technical things behind the scene. You usually won't have much to do with that. If they're worth their weight, then they're just going to do those things. This is a very technical resource. It's not your designer, not your developer, not your project manager. This is a totally different group of people. Next, you move to development. Once that homepage approval, you know what the look and feel is going to look like. You move into development, and it's going to depend. Now does the design have things in it that make it a custom website, or is it a standard website? So are there things that are going to require, when I say standard versus custom, design can impact development. If the design is complex, you've got somewhere in the website there is a gallery that you click on multiple different tabs and it pulls up different galleries for different regions or areas, or you have an integration or an integrated map that moves. That design that you guys wind up agreeing on is going to impact development. So if you have standard, then they can probably quickly estimate how long it's going to take. If it's custom, there's anything in the design that makes it a custom development project where the developer has to spend time developing something that doesn't already exist or hasn't been created that they can't reuse, then it's going to take a little bit longer. So this is the handoff from designer to develop. Next, the designer works on all the rest of your site. You have interior pages and blog layouts and sliders and graphics and promotions. Depending on what options you chose up front, you might have a lot of additional types of graphics that need to be, or design work that needs to be done as a part of the project. That can happen behind the scenes. Next is content. So content is depends again on your options and selections. There's different kind of content resources. You have custom content writers, which write for engagement, viral interaction. You have SEO content writers, which are very technical and write for search engines. It's not custom. They're not talking to your company. It's not going to specifically sound like it's coming from your mouth. They're going for key phrases and search locations, or both. You also may have content editors, which comes later. So development, during this process, the development is complete. You're going to have an empty shell. So when somebody says the development site is done or your website's developed, your website's technically done, but a website without all the content is just an empty shell. It has dummy content and placeholders instead of real content and images and graphics and all the other things. So next process is content transfer begins. All of you come to the table typically with some kind of asset, or you have no website, so this isn't part of the process. Content transfer is the process of evaluating existing content, transferring that content, metadata, images, products, files, videos, pictures, and without getting too technical, when you copy a page of content, whatever code your past website has is completely wrapped into that content. So not only do they have to transfer every single individual page, but they have to strip all the code from behind it that makes it display in Arial font versus Times New Roman, in font size 12 versus font size 10. They have to strip all of the code, and then they have to recode that content so it displays with whatever the new colors, logos, font styles, and so forth are. So this is a lengthy process. Content transfer is going to be probably the largest impact on your overall design. The number of pages you need to transfer, the number of images, products, files, videos is going to seriously determine how long of a project this is going to take, because that's usually a heavy duty, just time consuming process. Next, when that is entirely done, if in your option selections you also have time allocated for an editor and proofer that's going to be reviewing either the SEO content that you have and or your current content. I have never seen a website without content errors and issues. I know mine has it too. So if that's a priority to you and you're really particular and want to make sure you've got an editor, you're going to have plan time and resources towards that kind of a resource as well. And they cannot do anything. This is not something they can work on in tandem. Everything else has to be done before they can even start. So that's going to be usually a big impact on the end result of the website project as well. And you want to plan for that up front. Just know it going into it. It's not a small or short project. Next, you're in review. So when you first have a website, now you have the design, you already know what it's going to look like, so you're not making design changes. It's developed, which is all the behind the scenes. You have content that's been transferred from your old website, possibly content that you had an agency write for you, and possibly the editing and grammar and typos and all of those things fixed, spelling and so forth. And now you're looking at it to make decisions, usually with the project manager and strategist, on excerpts, titles, pictures, navigation, layout, as far as what pages in what order. You're auditing the forms, testing the functionality, and then boom, you guys, it's time for go live, which is a process itself. So again, this is really, behind this list is a list of about 167, that's in our world, tasks that have to take place in order to make all these things go, and usually between 16 and 20 different resources. So commit to the process, get comfortable being uncomfortable, and knock it out. I have a little graphic right here that says, shh, be very, very quiet. We're building your website. That is in this specific area right here. As a business owner, when things get quiet and it's something you guys have invested in, it's really easy to freak out if you don't hear from somebody. So again, remember, shh, we're building your website. When you get into these guys, this is nose to the grind. They live in front of a computer. They're not talking to anybody. This is all they're doing. So you're always going to have a gap when you get out of, in this stage, when you're in the design stage and the onboarding and the project launch, you have lots of communication and things are moving and you're hearing from people, and then you approve the design and boom, they go to work. So just remember, they're working, they'll be back. All right. So I gave you a sample timeline based on content transfer, just to help you guys with some reasonable expectations. Again, the number of pages somebody has to write and transfer could impact your site. Difference between a 25-page website taking 60 days or less and a 1,000-page website could take a year, and anything in the middle. So, and this is, we're working on content. All right, next, let's talk design. All right, so first and foremost, when it comes to design, this is the hard one. Focus on performance, which means that we all, you, me, our designers, we have bosses. So, and having owned a digital marketing agency and operated multiple companies in addition to this, I have dealt with a significant amount of developers and engineers. And here's the reality. We like to decorate a house. Well, I'm a girl, so I like to decorate a house, but I can't build it. So when it comes to performance, this is a hard one to bite into, but oftentimes designers and clients and project managers will make decisions on design that a developer or a search engine engineer will come back and say, no, this is why you can't do that. It's not going to render on a cell phone. It's going to be in violation of Google. It works on Chrome, but it doesn't work on Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer doesn't render rounded corners, stuff like that. So just remember, when it comes down to this, somebody that knows more than we do is going to say no. In my world, I always talk to my developers, can't you just? And they're like, Jen, no, don't say just. It makes it sound like it's easy. So on the design side, let's start with the homepage, because that's first. That was one of the first critical milestones in the slide before for the process. So when it comes to your homepage, you have some constants. When I say constant, it means it needs to stay the same on every single page. Number one is your header. This area right up here at the very top, that's a header. And your header needs to not change around. Imagine being on a website and you click on a tab and boom, it rearranges the whole thing. That would be very frustrating and not standard. So whatever is in the header should technically stay the same as consumers navigate around the site. You don't want to bounce things around, change your nav. You don't want to move things all over and make a consumer just flustered, because they've got lots of options with a couple million sites online. Next is navigation, same thing. People need to be able to memorize that navigation. They need to be able to get around earlier, quicker. And the navigation is one of the critical elements to getting that page to rank. Making sure that you have proper titles, page titles, as well as some kind of a geo tag in it. You guys want to go after business in a local area or close to your office? If the navigation does not have those things in it, that page is going to go straight into a junk drawer with everyone else. So this is where an SEO engineer is going to come in when you say, I just wanted to say services, and they're going to say, no. If you wanted to say services, just know that page is a junk drawer page. If you want it to get filed in the cabinet correctly, then it needs to say AC service in blank, whatever the city is. All right, next. And that navigation is consistent across all pages. You may have more than one navigation, which a lot of times we recommend on HVAC sites, contractor sites in general, because you guys have a lot of different services that you need to be able to clearly identify, because they're only sold during certain times of the year for the most part. Or consumers are, you might sell them year round, but consumers are specifically looking for air conditioning during a certain season, heating during a certain season, whether it's ventilation or refrigeration, or if you do electrical or plumbing or solar or any of those other things. We even got guys with appliances and mechanical and so forth, commercial versus residential. There's a lot of different fundamental product groups or service groups within your business. So having more than one navigation will help you be able to keep that line clean, so you don't have to make somebody dig around to figure out what you sell. And you can clearly point out all the other things like about us and reviews and our service areas and testimonial, all of these other things that are important as well. But you don't want to mess up your main navigation, which is, what are you trying to sell? What do you want to showcase? Next is the footer. The footer is this section down here at the very bottom. And again, that applies to all pages. So inside the footer, there's some critical elements that are important in Google's webmaster requirements. You want to have in there your address, your phone number. We need to make sure that hopefully you have, probably not, but eventually you'll get terms and conditions, privacy disclosures, making sure that you have other call to actions, which we'll go over in a minute, and a way to contact you. What kind of credit cards do you take? What are your office hours? When are you open, not open? Do you offer emergency service? All of these other things that are really important. Most internet searchers are used to looking in the top right-hand corner of a website for everything that they need, and the footer. Boom, they scroll right to the footer and they expect all the stuff they need is either in one of those two areas. So those are really important areas to make sure that they're done well and all the right things are there. Next is going to be the slider, which is above the fold, or some kind of a marketing, which above the fold means it shows on your screen. It's visible on the screen when someone lands there. You need to have something that is dynamic, meaning that it can change. Because you sell so many different services, and they vary depending on the type of the year or the time of the year. They vary based on storms and seasons, on manufacturer, promotions that are going on, energy savings programs that are going on, might be tax credits located or available with high efficiency systems, might be something specific you're trying to roll out and test. This area, you don't really want to make it too static. It needs to be something that's dynamic. That slider needs to be able to be changed out on a regular basis. And you're going to be investing in designing new sliders forever. At least you should be. That should be part of your budget, a graphics budget, because you always want to be testing what works. What are people looking at? If you've got traffic coming to your website, it's time to test. If you're not testing, then being able to increase your website's overall conversions is going to be difficult because you're not comparing, you're not testing one thing against another to determine what it looks like. All right, next is the containers. They're called body. This is the body area of a website in here, and these are all containers. So it's kind of like connector blocks, right? This is a container. And in this container, there is 2/3 of the container on the right. There's 1/3 on the left. This is a full width container, full width container. This is half and half, half and half. This is full width, and so forth. So every container can show something else. Now we're going to talk about being careful when it comes to over designing a website, putting too much on there. On one hand, consumers are used to these really kind of long, full-width websites that are mobile responsive, and they don't really have to dig around the inside of a website to find too much of what they need. They want to be able to get everything at a glance, which means the websites are going to be longer. On the other hand, search engines and servers are going to have a harder time loading a website that's longer and contains more stuff in it. So you just want to be careful with the body containers, and trying to satisfy both is not easy under any circumstances, because Google and consumers are opposites in many ways. Next is call to actions, which need to be clear throughout the site. You're going to have call to actions in your header and footer and throughout the interior of the site and so forth. We'll come back to that in the next one. Inside here, this is what I was saying about content and images. These are options that you're going to add to the site. If you say, I want to have a website that has 6 containers on the front page, but you don't have those content and images either written or already written or to be written, and pictures and graphics designed and so forth, nothing's going to be in here. So when this site is designed and developed, it's empty or filled with dummy content, unless you have something to put in there. And that's either time or money. You're either spending the time to write it yourself, which I don't enjoy doing very much myself, or you're hiring resources. So you'll notice throughout the entire website, there are call to action, there are buttons. They literally stand off the page. They're in colored text, they're in a box format, and they look like a button, a tab, something that you would click. This is really important. interactive tools, things like SARE calculators, troubleshooters. We'll talk more about that later. On the interior pages of a website, interior pages are like About Us, Our Services, AC Repair. You have a constant as well. Typically, you're going to have a sidebar. The sidebar allows you to put things like call to actions, featured reviews, maybe a promotion, earn $25 off your next service for referring a friend or family to us. Might be a tune-up. I said oil change. Might be a tune-up or a performance test, an energy efficiency test, something that you can put on the site as well. Sidebars are a little bit more interactive, and they're going to call attention to somebody to take action on a website. Again, this is about focusing on conversions. And then you have the body content. Body content heavily geared towards Google. Heavily geared towards Google. So sidebars, graphics, call to actions, videos, images, infographics, all of those things are heavily geared towards consumers who don't have very much time to take care of their personal task list that you happen to be on. But then you have Google, who's not looking at anything except crawling Braille, which is read and text. So, and text and code. So we want to be very careful. You'll have body content, which has to contain unique text. You have page styling. Remember, I was talking about all that content with the code behind it is important. Utilizing pictures and infographics to break up text. You have to have the text. Technically, right now, you should have about 1,500 page or words per page of unique content for search engines to really compete in a competitive market. If you're in a major city or urban area, you can get away with 300 to 500 words if you're in a smaller area per page, and have that individual page compete for placement. But pictures and videos, infographics that help a client understand the difference in between equipment. In California, why geothermal doesn't work. You may have a graphic that explains that, and so forth. So promotional graphics, they got to change through seasons. So a lot of times people they'll treat their website like a project. Their whole intention is it has a start date and it has a go live date, and then it's over and it just works. And it doesn't work that way. It's not a project. It's a lifestyle to manage a website. It's a business owner's commitment to continue to increase the performance of the website by adding to it, by changing things out, by testing sliders, promotional graphics, videos, call to actions, content. All of these things are necessary in order to truly get a website to acquire more traffic in order to convert more potential customers. So remember, very, very important, that this presentation is geared around website design and development and how to convert more customers. In order to convert more customers, the website has to be seen by more eyeballs, which means this doesn't work on its own. You got to have some kind of marketing thing that's out there. All right, next we have blogs. So if you're going to be adding content on a regular basis, which we recommend, but not a priority over some of the other things. So you might have other priorities that are more important than blogging right now. Eventually, when you get those things knocked out, blogs are great gateways to get people to your website. If someone is doing, it's called a long tail search, which basically means, I'll give you an example. If I talk to my Alexa device or my Siri or Google Home, and I say, hey Siri, what's the best heating and air conditioning company or AC repair company with the best reviews in the blank area? That's a long search. Or if I ask Siri on my computer, hey Siri, how frequently do I need to change my air filters? Or when do I need to replace my heating and air conditioning system? Those are long tail search phrases. That's not going to happen on all of your interior pages. That's going to happen on your blog post. If you want to get found for the questions that consumers are looking for, then that's where a blog comes in handy. So as I mentioned before, design and conversions required. You got to have That design layout requires code, and it requires text and pictures and graphics and so forth in order to make it work. Design, so I keep mentioning call to actions because that's what converts consumers. So let me give you just a handful of examples. There are a lot more of these, but I just want to roll over these real quick. So schedule service, request an estimate, apply for financing, sign up for maintenance, click to call, request a quote, servicing area, service areas, 24/7 emergency service, we're hiring, read our reviews, we're different, check us out, troubleshoot it, online chat, calculate your savings, view promotions, social promotions or only social promotions, or like our page to receive our social promotions, subscribe to our newsletter, get text promotions, sign up today. You can use the word exclusive, those things will help. Submit a review, online estimate, different than request an estimate. It produces a different result depending on where you're at. Get feedback, ask a tech a question, view video libraries, view case studies. All of these kinds of call to actions are typically going to require some kind of conversion expert for placement. So we have a gentleman on our team who is a CRO, which is a conversion optimization. He's a conversion optimization expert, and that's what he does. He studies and uses heat maps on sites to determine, should it be 15-point font, 13-point font, should it be in red or blue or yellow, depending on the background color, should it be in the header in the right, should it be on the right of the phone number, how big should it be, how small should it be, what generates the best conversions. And A is never done. He's never done. He's constantly looking. Headers, footers, sidebars, inline text, inline blogs, homepage containers. All of these are the primary areas you need to have your major call to actions, and then of course there's other options as well. All of these things are 100% focused on conversions. All right, now to the part you guys are gonna probably, hopefully you don't mentally check out here. I have to go nerd for just a minute and talk about coding, because this is one area. Actually, I met a gentleman at an event last week, and he was talking to some younger girls that were at the table that worked for the dad, so all HVAC. And I can't tell you exactly what he said because he was very colorful, but he was talking about the amount of money he has spent over time trying to go with cheap websites, free websites, template websites, doing it himself, hiring his son. He just went through this list, and he was like, not only have I spent tens of thousands of dollars, I have lost years and years and years of potential income. And he said the cost of doing it right once and maintaining it right after that, I would do it over and over again. And he's been a client of ours for a couple years now, and he's doubled his sales with that particular manufacturer, and is excited. He's excited because he's been around the block a little. He's got some experience. So when it comes to designers and developers, these are very different people. Remember, designers, we were just talking about design. They went to graphics school. They've been drawing since they were young. They dress nice. They have real friends. They're creative. They went to art school. Developers, totally different. These guys have been probably coding and hacking computers and probably taking their toaster apart when they were young. And they are so smart, it's hard to process everything. They don't design well, and they can't spell because they write in code all day long. So usually they're typo junkies. That's what they do. They have typos if they have to touch content. So every different resource is different. When it comes to developers, they come in all different types of developers. None of us can get the best. We're small businesses, but we should get the best we can. And this is people and technology. So we're not going to get the best. It's just the best coders in the world are just out of all of our budget range. I can't hire them, and most small businesses, all small businesses can't afford them. They work for the government or Google or other companies. All right, so there's different kind of developers, programmers / coders. So you have database architects, server engineers, front-end coders, back-end coders, custom development coders. They program in different languages. And then you have what happens after the website goes live. That's a different group of people. Once your website is live, you don't want to eliminate, you don't want to have to have these people. You want to be able to do a lot of the different changes on your own, but you want people that are there to support you. So website administrators, support, security people are totally different. Maintenance, analysts, these are all different kinds of resources. So do you need them all? Yes, but you only need a sliver of time at certain times of the year throughout that. So that's important when it comes to understanding the technical resources for a website that are necessary to keep you out there, keep you converting, and keep you growing, keep your website safe, and so forth. All right, so let's go through the types of website technology. A lot of times I'll get on the phone during strategy sessions and say, what kind of website do you have if I haven't seen it yet? Sometimes they don't know. So there is, this image is a really good example. This is what's behind the scenes. This is in front of the scenes. This is the designer. They're listening to music, jamming out, hanging out. They can talk while they design. Then you have the coder with all of their sticky notes and jamming out with headphones on, not talking to anybody. They actually can physically see that this code produces something that looks pretty. In their mind, it does. We don't see that, but they do. All right, now coding, what that is, it's a language. It's like speaking Spanish or French or English or Chinese or Vietnamese, whatever it is. It's a language, and they all speak different languages. Developers code. Web apps is a type of a way you can build a site. They are pre-coded, and code doesn't last. It continues to change over time. So it gets old, it breaks, it has to be, you have to continually change it. We used to build websites with just straight HTML. They're old, it's flat, they load fast, lightweight. Then it went to, this is always the process, small business. Then you go to the DIY, do it yourself, and using a website builder that has the same chunk of code and it's not designed for marketing, it's designed just to build a website, easy, cheap, free, and fast. And then you have content management systems, which allows you to take control over your website. These are the top 4 content management systems, WordPress being the #1 at this particular time. This is when you have 1 million developers working on the same platform to develop and consistently redevelop the code so that you can compete over time. So, next, content. I think we've covered most of this. It's simple: AC repair, service, installation, replacement. What do you want to sell? Where do you want to sell it? What makes you different about you? Promotion sliders. When you get into blogs, educational content, informational, FAQs, comparisons, all designed to get that website ranked so you can convert. Custom functionality you want to be extremely careful with. So we want to make it interactive, but on the same side, too much interactive cause problems. So different kind of interactive web apps for you guys: stair calculator, troubleshooter, online scheduling, live chat, knowledge base, file sharing, online payments, payment calculators, videos, social media, surveys, competitions. All of these things are going to make your website more interactive. The warning is they're going to increase your investment. They should never all be put on the home page, because they're going to slow the website down drastically. They're plugins. They got to load from somewhere else. So you don't want to put a bunch of these on the site. Our people are going to be waiting for widgets to load, and clients are impatient, and they're going to leave. And in addition to that, your project's going to take significantly longer. So very careful. Get excited, but then you might be scaled back by somebody who says, I don't want all of these cool things to make you your site not perform as well. So careful. All right, next. This is the final thing I want to go over to help, because I can go over all of the things and ways that you can design and develop a website and create content that's going to help you convert more of the traffic that you get from your marketing activities. But These are the performance killers that you want to avoid at all cost. And if you know them going into it, it's a lot easier to try and deal with them and frame your mindset to be able to make sure these things don't become a hindrance of you accomplishing your goals and your business as you go through the process. So technical killers: too many design elements, too long, it's too much, too many images, the files are too large, you're uploading massive files to your library, too much code, too many containers, hard coding. So once something's been, a theme has certain functionality, if it's hard coded, it's going to cause problems forever. The website's going to break over time. So third-party apps, widgets. If you want to put a widget on your website that loads your tweets from Twitter or your videos from YouTube or your Facebook images, be careful because it's the combined sum of all of these things that can really kill performance. Your website will not load until the other application has loaded from a different company's website. If that company is having any slowdowns, big traffic times, it's going to delay yours. Iframes, embed codes, duplicate content or lack of content, custom functionality, prioritizing design over performance is a technical killer. Withholding information, not having access to analytics, webmaster, any kind of reporting history, not having ownership, access, or rights. All of those things can really cause issues. Some of them you can avoid, some of them you just have to deal with, and it is what it is, so smile through it. Next, personal killers. These are personality things that all us humans have to work with. One is initial knowledge transfer. You want to be careful, even if they understand and have worked strictly in your industry or that's their baby. If an agency has worked in HVAC for 10 years and you say, well, you should know my industry, you go do it. The problem is now all you are is HVAC. They don't know anything about you. They don't know all those unique factors. So get down and dirty with that knowledge transfer, man. Help educate them, teach them about you guys. And sometimes you got to self-reflect, which is hard. Next, design opinions, personal opinions and perception over data-driven design work. That's a killer. Lack of experience or trust. You've been burned before, something didn't work, maybe you bailed before it had time to. I don't know what the situation is, but this tends to make people skeptical and it's hard to collaborate. Focusing on the wrong things, not prioritizing correctly, communication delays. You guys get busy, I get it, but it's just going to delay the project. So it's not a big deal. It can. Just know it going into the process. Not remembering or knowing what's in plan. If you fly through that process up front and you don't go back and relook at what did I sign up for, what's included, what's not included, those are both two important things that'll keep you from burning time and money and resources on conversations that are not necessary. You already know them. Overreacting to simple things. Remember that big chart I showed you, it's not easy. So just smile through it. You're going to see small things with any web company that are text or formatting or picture or the page needs to change around. As long as you're in a content management system like WordPress, those are easy. No need for high blood pressure. All you got to do is clearly tell them what you want to see changed and they can go do it. And it doesn't even take that long. Focusing on saying things like, I don't like it, instead of, I want this. Not collaborating, like I said earlier, not using their communication system. So when you start dismantling the chain or the sequence of requests by sending an email, then a phone call, then a text, then a chat, then social and telepathy and horse and buggy, then it just causes problems. Too many chiefs, and that can happen on both ends. It can happen on an agency as well as on yours. You got to have one point person that's responsible for everything. And same thing here. Right topic, wrong person. You got a good question, you're just asking the wrong person. Remember, they're technical experts at something specific. And then asking advice from people who are technically not advisors. And then not starting and knowing better. My business coach always said, if I could just get you to do the things you already know you should, you would consider me a genius. That being said, you guys, I hope this was valuable. I hope that you learned some things you can take back to your company or current agency. or take a minute, sign up for the free strategy session so you can go through the digital evaluation process with our team. Doesn't cost you anything, but knowledge is power. You can do that by visiting www.clwebgroup.com, shooting an email to our sales team, or giving us a ring. With that, thank you so much.
Okay. While I'm sitting here waiting for any questions that we might have in the box, remember that we will send an email out to follow up to see if anybody else would like to listen to this webinar again. Jennifer, right now I do not see any emails. Do you have any closing remarks you'd like to say?
Let's make this year a great year and do something different so we can produce a different result at the end.
Cool, cool. Well, at this time, I would like to close this webinar. Thank you once again for participating. This concludes the webinar, and you will be disconnected. Have a wonderful day.